Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Well, Thanksgiving is coming up, and I have a very terrible relationship with Thanksgiving. A lot of bad luck, a lot of curses. It all started when I lost my grandfather on my father's side in 2011. He passed away the day after Thanksgiving. I was working on my PhD. I knew he had been ill. He had a stroke. My dad had already traveled to Taiwan to visit him 2 times that year, and uh, uh, I was working on my PhD. It kind of weighed me down, but at the same time, I really needed a distraction from all of that, and that propelled me to get my PhD, and graduate. I was really struggling that year. The year before that, I had a serious mental health breakdown. So that year, I was already struggling. Having to hide from grandfather's illness propelled me to through the last part of my PhD program. So that it wasn't the end of the world. But day after Thanksgiving, my mom called and she was very quiet, and I knew something was up. I was thinking that maybe his illness had made a turn for the worse, and we needed to go visit him one last time, something to that effect. I didn't think he would be dead because we had just been talking to him on the phone not that many days ago. And my first thought when I learned about the news was, thank God I had gotten over my fear of flying. After 9/11, I swore I was never going to fly again. And I would have kept that pledge, except that I had um, I had relationship drama with every American girl that I ever dated. I still feel that way to this day, and so I decided I had to leave the country to meet my future wife someday, and that was a big reason why I got over my fear of flying. It still is a big reason why I would even consider flying now. That I don't fear flying anymore. It's just a big drag on my time, right? Here in the United States, I don't need to tell you guys how little vacation time we get. Every day seems like gold, right? And if I'm gonna fly somewhere, it better be worth it, right? So anyway, my first thought when I heard of Grandpa's passing was, thank God I can fly, and I went to his funeral. I almost missed the funeral because we were at my uncle's home. I got myself so caught up on a computer program I was writing. I told my brother, why don't you guys just go without me? I'm too distraught to go. I want to write this computer game. My brother said, "Are you kidding me? A whole family's going to be there." I said, "Yeah. The fuck, Grandpa." I was in a mess at the moment, and my brother said, "Fuck you." And he never curses. I think that was the only time in his entire, well, except for when he was a baby and didn't know any better and he emulated us. That was the only time in his whole life that I ever heard him say fuck. Actually, he said it when he was 2 years old. One time, we had gone to park, and my dad and I were arguing about where we were going to go for lunch or something like that, and a few fucks got exchanged, and suddenly my brother was in the park going, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and my mom was so upset at the two of us. But Grandpa passed away the day after Thanksgiving, and ever since then I've never had a moment of peace. Actually, the following year I was working at a technology company, and I was upset about the Thanksgiving. What had happened was I was already overworked and exhausted, and when the Thanksgiving holiday came, it was like the entire holiday break got swallowed up by all of the sleep debt that I had accumulated, and I was very upset. I thought I had all week to myself to do all the things that I wanted to do, and I didn't. I had to catch up on sleep. The year after that, I was in a different job in a different city, and I had a turbulence with relationship kind of drama. I had just moved into a place And my first day moving in there, one of my roommates was interested in me, but I later found out she wanted children. She wanted to get married after we had only seen each other for like a week, and I was just in a mess as a result. And long story short, I don't know what to think of it. It gave me a boost of confidence, but at the same time, can we slow it down a little bit? Right? That wasn't the only time I ran into someone like that. I'll get to another one in a moment. Uh, I In 2017, I was working at another technology company, and one of my colleagues took advantage of me because I wasn't familiar with the culture. We would have a rotation of employees who were responsible for fixing bugs. Just before Thanksgiving, my colleague comes up to me while I was distracted with something else. He just buzzed me and says, "Hey, do you mind switching the weeks with me?" And I didn't think very much of it. I had just joined the company. It wasn't like I was going anywhere Thanksgiving. It didn't seem like a big deal. So I said, "All right, yeah, I guess that's good." And he switched it, and before I knew it, I realized why he had switched it. He knew that week would be incredibly busy, disproportionately. He knew the culture of the company. He'd been working there 3 years, and I think he took advantage of me. I don't know. Leave your thoughts on this. If you know something that your colleagues don't, and you use it to leverage and ask, is that morally okay? Leave a comment. I'm just wondering how people feel about this. I'm still upset about it. But you know what compounded the upset even more? When he came back from his vacation, I was hoping to talk to him and see if I can get some kind of return favor from him. Right after all, I thought, and this is where my perception was a little bit off, I thought the company seemed like a family kind of culture. 2017, I had just left another relationship. My girlfriend and I had broken up over her wanting children. And so I thought maybe I could network through this new colleague. I didn't tell him that yet, but I was like, hey, can you believe it? After you left, all of this stuff went down. I was hoping to get him to talk. And he completely tuned me out of his life after I said that. All I said was, "Can you believe it? All this happened while you were away." That's all I said, and I don't think I ever heard an intellectual word out of him again. He just ghosted me every time he saw me in the cafe, and it created a huge bottleneck. It made things awkward. It created bottlenecks with the other colleagues. Long story short, that's a big reason why I didn't last. That's also a big reason why the company didn't last. That kind of behavior was not isolated to that one situation. It was pretty common in that office. Obviously, my grandmother passed away last year around the time of Thanksgiving. I also, unfortunately, my generation is full of horrific deaths. Right? I think if current trends can, I read on the news once. I can't find the article. If current trends continue with the drug uses, with suicides and all the deaths of despair and all that, uh, we could have a generation that where a majority of people have to bury their children, right? Something to that effect. So we're losing like 20, 30 years of life expectancy within a couple of decades. But to understand how fragile life is, when I was in college, I had feuded with another guy over a girl. At the time, it seemed like the biggest thing in the world, right? And that was 20 years ago. 20 years later, I'm the only one of the three left. And I almost feel a little bit of survivor's guilt over that. It was Thanksgiving 2005. The guy I was feuding with had invited me over to his apartment. He was studying chemistry. I always wanted to study chemistry. My dad wouldn't allow me because I'm accident prone. And he was showing me how he had extracted some gold from electronic waste that he had picked up from school. He had a small amount of gold, it was only a few grams. But he had already done like hundreds and hundreds of tons of electronics. He had hydrochloric acid and a few other chemicals. And I asked him, "Where do you buy this stuff?" He says, "Oh, it's no big deal. You could buy this at Home Depot." He showed me the bottles. You'd buy this at Home Depot. When he said Home Depot, the girl that we were feuding over was working part time at Home Depot now, and I went, and he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, don't go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's. Lowe's sells the same stuff." Gave me a nice warm fuzzy feeling. And the funny thing is that we were just fine when we were discussing chemistry or any sort of study, right? But as soon as the conversation revolved around the girl or any other girl or the concept of making new connections, all of a sudden we were feuding again. It's kind of like how the U.S. and Russia can do science together, but don't talk about their religions, right? It almost feels like that, right? So it gave me a nice warm fuzzy feeling. Now, uh, unfortunately, he and the girl have since passed, if you can believe it, and both of them around the holiday season. In 2020, I was very, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was very casual about things. I didn't think I was invincible. I didn't think it killed anybody that I knew. It affected other people on the other side of the planet, right? That's how I felt until he became the first one of the first people that I knew that died of COVID 19. The truth is that he probably had other pre existing health conditions. For starters, he often wasn't very mindful of his hygiene while working with these chemistry experiments. Or when we were doing the gold experiment, his whole lab just smelled of acid. Now that I think back at it, that could have contributed to the weakening of his immune system. But and then I remembered that how good he was at getting people together, and how he, even though we were feuding over a girl, he still found something out of me, right? And so, and that's probably why he never had anybody more than 6 feet away from him. And when I thought of it in that regard, his death was a little bit more bearable to me. But unfortunately, the girl we were feuding over also passed away. She had been out of town and got into a car accident. I think with a rental car, even. Which is why I really hesitate on renting cars. I usually prefer to just. I'd rather drive a long distance to where I'm going than to go there and get a rental car. So it seems like, right. So for example, when I was at the solar eclipse, I drove from Phoenix to Kerrville, um, and she passed on Thanksgiving 2022. So another 2 years later, and so I cannot believe it because I remember telling her about our after the guy had passed. I remember telling her about our chemistry experiments and how he had to tell me to go to Lowe's because of you. And so she laughed about that. This was after he had passed and when she was still here. And so I can't think too hard about it. It just gives me a lot of survivor's guilt. Now, the girl we were feuding over was Eastern European, I think from Romania, but close enough. And a few years ago, to commemorate the 125th anniversary of Mary Curie discovering polonium 210, I extracted a small amount of polonium 210 out of some dust from our vacuum cleaner. So, a little bit of background. Dust in the vacuum cleaner can contain some small amounts of polonium 210 because when radon in the air decays, it gets positively charged and gets attached to dust. And I used hydrochloric acid and a bunch of other stuff. Except I bought it at Ace Hardware because I wanted to buy it at Home Depot as a tribute to what had happened, but I couldn't find any, so I bought it at Ace Hardware. And after I had extracted the polonium, it brought me a sense of sorrow because I was doing his experiments, but with an atom that was slightly bigger, only 5 extra protons, right? It was close enough, right? And so I was extracting her great aunt's discovery. It just brought a lot of sorrow to the fact that they were both the two of them were gone, and they were up in heaven with Mary Curie, making polonium a little bit more efficiently, right, than I was. Right, maybe they were using the new process of taking some beautiful rock and blasting it with neutrons, right? Instead of taking dirty household dust and extracting polonium-210 out of it. Right? Unfortunately, I have a lot of bad luck revolving around holidays for some reason. Every Thanksgiving. Which is why last week when I had the scare at work, I had a situation that brought back some trauma. I teach at a tutoring center. One of my students had brought in some food that I'm allergic to, and I had to social distance away from her. And situations like that have led to downfalls of me at work in previous jobs, and the fact that it happened so close to Thanksgiving it didn't make it go any better. Right? Let's just put it that way. All right. Please help lift my Thanksgiving curse. Oh yeah, another one. Last year, I had a landlord who took advantage of me. She had a house repair emergency, and I had just come home from a Thanksgiving party, and I was in good spirits. And she was like, "Hey, can you pay your rent early? After all this." And I really shouldn't have done that. I think she took advantage of the fact that I was on such a high wave that I didn't want to. As soon as I paid it, I regretted it. I was using Zelle, and as soon as I hit the send button, I was like, I should have at least asked for a discount, or I should have asked, "Hey, can we pay this toward your contractor so we can get the work done?" I mean, we haven't had carpet in the house for like 2 weeks. This is ridiculous, right? I should have at least asked for something. As soon as I hit the send button, I was already regretting it, right? I think she took the landlord, and this is why I really enjoy the fact that I have some resources now. Right now, the metals market is doing really well. When I calculated my net worth, I was astonished at the total. And after I had calculated my net worth, later that day, I was negotiating with my boss, and I'm like, "Gee, I feel like I'm talking to a friend now. I'm not talking to somebody who feeds me, right? I'm just talking to a friend. Just like if you guys know that I'm dating somebody in Vietnam, right? Just like when I was seeing her, when I was answering my boss on whether or not I wanted to come on Saturday, it was like answering her what movie I wanted to go see. It turned that into that. It really did. It really did. All right, this is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.